This is it. This is number 20. So this is the goal post and the goal line for this time, for this segment, for this system, for this series, however you want to call it. And I'm hoping you've gotten something out of it. I've freely given this. I didn't want anybody to subscribe. I just want to make sure everybody gets a chance to advance themselves. And through these rough times, you can learn a lot. Shakespeare said, "Sweet are the uses of adversity." And I think through this adversity, we've learned a few things, those of us who've been lucky enough to survive it. And here we are, I'm in sleepy Victoria, BC, Tempo Trend Studios, by the way, I should mention again. I'm grateful for the use of this facility and my comrade who's been helping me record these for you. I want to just cover some common questions today, some of them bordering on the philosophical, and present you with a few more sheets of technical information, and then sign off, hopefully with a feeling in my heart that I've given you the best that I can to bridge the gap from that intermediate to the advanced, and maybe put a foot into the advanced in some cases, some people might find. Hopefully it hasn't been too big a jump in any of the things I presented. I tried to make sure that I gave you the backup sheets. We're getting better at that. We've been getting the link ups on those things nailed down. And other than that, it's just up to me to have explained it, I hope in a way that you can digest it and apply it to your particular circumstance. So many times things are theoretical and they don't quite suit the circumstance. I think sometimes you have to be flexible with any of these things. Sometimes you have to shave the square peg to fit in the round hole, and that's true when you're recording. You realize that an idea in theory might sound great, but then when you listen back, it's not gelling with something else. This happens all the time in recording and even playing live on stage. Something will be bothering you and you realize what it would be. There's something clashing. And sometimes it's not just the melodic elements, it's the rhythmic elements. I find guitar players painfully unaware, and I've been guilty of this too, it's just common, of not listening to the rhythmic things. And sometimes drummers will give you nice little clues of how you can phrase if you're picking up on it. Sometimes bass players are playing, I play bass as well, bass players will play too high in their register, clashing with other elements and not be aware of it. Sometimes to play bass, you just got to play bass. Stay in the lower areas, except when you're soloing, of course, you can go off and express yourself. So there's a time for everything. To everything, turn, 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 like the song says. Just got to know those times and be respectful and listen to others. So I think the biggest thing that I think of philosophically is, what's your motivation in playing? That comes into play all the time. And there were times when I thought in my earlier days, gosh, I just want to be as good as so-and-so. I think everybody said that. Probably your first inspiration, you were thinking, well, if you heard Clapton, or a lot of people say Hendrix, and they were just little kids when they first heard it. They didn't know what it was, but they loved it. They were drawn to it. Sometimes that's it. It takes that first infatuation with it, that attraction. And when you're drawn to something, that's a pure motivation. Then as you get further along, you start playing, and then you get feedback from people, and suddenly you're known. It goes to your head. Invariably it does, and anybody who says it doesn't affect them is shining you on. They're not telling the truth, because it does affect you. Even somebody saying, gee, you guys sound great tonight, that's going to affect you. So you have to keep it in perspective, though. Why are you doing this? Are you doing it for that? Are you doing it to meet girls if you're a guy, or guys to meet guys, or whatever your situation is, whatever your predisposition is? But I think or is it just to get plastered, to get hammered, to get up on stage and make a fool out of yourself? And I had many instances where I backed up people who crossed that line, and I found it really disappointing. I'm pleased to say that I never played drunk or stoned on stage, and I never felt the urge to. I was not a prude. I did try my, as we call, spiritual condiments, as we called them on the road. I did dabble, but I saw no future in it. I don't think it enhances your playing. You might make an argument that it enhances creativity. It certainly lowers your inhibitions. You might play, but I find that the rhythmic quality of your playing suffers, and you only need to get stoned by whatever means you cross the line. Some people are in the zone, they're okay, but if you get over your limit, you'll notice when you record yourself, you play back, you might be playing something really creative, but you're all over the map. Your timing is useless, so you can't use it. So know thyself. I guess that's that Socratic thing, Socrates thing. Know yourself, know what you can do, and work within it. Know your limit, play within it. No, that's for lotteries. Anyway, gambling. So there's that thing. So make sure your motivations are pure. You can't go wrong. If you're in this game for music and all the stuff that I presented to you, it won't slow you down. You'll say, give me more sheets. You're greedy, you're hungry, you want that. You want, your thirst for knowledge is what fuels this. Next thing, and I just wrote a few little things here I want to get. What's the most important thing in great playing? People have asked me. Now that they've got some chops, as we say in the trade, they can know their way around the neck. What do I look for? They would ask me. They personalize it. What do you look for? And when I think about it, other than just the obvious talent exhibited, the facility, what I look for in a technical sense is, I think, phrasing, letting music breathe. I remember once Nuno Betancourt of the band Extreme was asked, why do you leave so many holes in your solos? And he very sternly responded, saying, those aren't holes, man, that's hot space. Well, you see, that's a very Zen-like thing. The space is saying something too. So learning to let your solos breathe, if you're improvising. Learning to let your chords breathe when you're strumming. You don't have to be scrub boarding the whole time. Leave some holes in there. Let some air. Open the windows a little bit. Now, I wish I could open these windows. It's hot right now. But you know, you work with what you got and try to make every song sound the best that it can be. And if somebody's singing and singing well and giving their heart to it, you owe them the best solo and the best backing first, and then the best solo that you can give them. Take some of the melody and let it merge and bump into the scales and the modes and things we were talking about. Let that collide. Maybe start with the melody, pure and simple, and then embellish that. That's the way they did it in the old days before I was a musician, and some of those are very memorable. These days it's just 1, 2, 3, go. I'm going to show you every lick I know, and you could take a ballad and just rip right through it. I'm not as inclined to be impressed by that kind of thing. Now, some of that's personal taste, but I just think you gotta, Ed Bickert, the great jazz guitarist, now deceased, had an album called I Like to Recognize the Tune. Good advice, you know, I like to recognize the tune in there and take it somewhere, certainly, but keep one finger on what the song was, so that you can bring it back when you're through the solo and everybody says, wow, that was nice. Now we come back to the lyric. What's this singer saying now? Okay, so there's that thing. So I think phrasing, all those things, the way, you know, that you connect with other, and listen to people like B.B. King for that kind of economy. These are people who said so much with much fewer notes than a lot of people play. I only half jokingly refer to this series as Shredding with Sherman. It's partly the alliteration, but as I say, for me, the real shredding comes in playing the best line, the best solo that you can play every night, every song, as if it were your last. You know, just kind of have some of that courage to reach deeper within yourself and play. Have I hit those? No. There are many times when I look back, and I've even recorded some that I wish I could do over again. With time, you're always thinking that, you know, you could have done it better. You can't live with that kind of regret all the time. You just say that's a snapshot of that era, and I'll live with it, as long as it didn't have a train wreck or something. Then you want to do it over. But sometimes when you do things over and over again, there comes a point when you're thinking, perfection is not our goal in this. It's to express yourself and learn about yourself through the expression, because you're really the one being developed here, you know, which is strange. But That sounds very Zen-like, but you are the one. You're the temple being built here. The music's coming through you. So keep that in mind. All this other stuff, the bragging, the kind of stuff that's going on, and the show-off stuff, that's okay when you're 20 or something, but I meet 20-year-olds who have no use for that kind of stuff either. This is not American Idol. You know, this is not a contest. It's not the Olympics. This is art. Let's treat it like art. Let's take the courage, bring the courage to this thing, to say let's make music into something that's worthwhile and that could connect with somebody. And if somebody says thank you, that made my life easier, I've gone through a rough time, that's worth everything. And some guitar player come up and say, wow man, you sure play a lot of notes. Well, so what does that mean? That doesn't say anything to me, you know. So the guy's impressed that you can play faster than everybody or notes. That was never my goal. My goal is to get as many textures and play some nice things that makes the song better. Okay, enough said on all that stuff. How do we go forward here? Well, here's some things that I want to show you, just to kind of fill in some gaps, if this is the last lesson, and it will be for a little while. I have a sheet here called Summary of Chord Scale Relationships. Now, if you want to be overwhelmed by this whole thing, I've given you references to so many things here that I don't have time right now to explain them all. But you know, in the key of C, I just talked in last lesson what the diatonic chords are. C, D minor, E minor, right? One chord on each letter name of the scale note. Well, they're in here, but also there are chords that occur in songs that are non-diatonic. So, meaning, translation, not in the key, but they sound nice. And so if you go from a C to an A flat chord or something, what do you play on in a case like that? Well, I have that covered. So let's see what it says here. If it's an A flat or A flat sixth, that's a flat 6 in our scale, right? A, B, C, D, right? Oh, sorry, C, D, E, F, G, A. That's the 6th scale tone. Flat, so it's A flat. And then you will play an E flat major scale. Now, does that sound strange to you? You're going to say, why wouldn't I play an A flat major scale? It's because and too much to explain right now in terms of theory, but a non-diatonic chord that has a non-scale tone root as A flat, A is the scale tone root, A flat is not, it wants to be a 4 chord in a key. Now, can I explain to you why it wants to be a 4 chord? I have no idea. I truly don't. But I know that it does. And if you loop it, play a couple bars of C, strumming, straight time, no fancy stuff. Play a C major scale. Then when you go to A flat for 2 bars, don't play an A flat scale. Try your best to go right into an E flat scale and treating that A flat like the 4 chord of the key of E flat, and it will sound right. And you'll see that. So this was painstakingly acquired over many years, analyzing piano players, different people, the approaches, and then combined with some of the theory that you get out of Berklee School of Music in Boston. And there's a lot of ways to approach things. Also, there's some other scales we didn't get to touch on. The whole tone scale, the diminished scale. Some of these things, you can find these things online. At least get started. When we return, I'll dig into those a little bit for you. But anyway, you can see, if you can see it when you look at the sheet, there's a lot of chords here. Practice them. Go from C to every other chord on a loop and jam and try to segue into that scale. That's my best advice. I had a friend who was used to work at this store. She said, she played piano, and she said if I had ever had this when I was starting out on piano, once I started improvising, it would have saved me a whole world of trouble. Well, take it from her. I try to use this stuff every day, but you're going to have to work on it and chip away. And I would say not try to memorize everything. Just when you encounter a song that goes from C to A flat, take that as an opportunity to apply this theory. Okay, so that's that sheet. Next sheet is pretty complicated stuff. This is called diatonics, secondary dominance, and chromatic passing chords. Now what I did here, this is really, it's squeezed into small print. You're going to have a hard time seeing it from your distance. But what I did was, if I look at the C strip right there, I've shown you the diatonic row, which is, and it's, I don't know, this should have to be done again. There's so much information on this, I probably overloaded you here on this to make sense of this, but you can go across the diatonic row, and our theory is, as always, the C scale will cover you. What happens when you go to other chords that occur in common songs? So I have little dipsy doodles down here from the major diatonic row. I guess I'm getting out of frame here, maybe you can't see me, but going into other chords like secondary dominants down below. What happens if you go to an E7th chord, okay, off the key of C? Which scale would you use? So that's not a 6/7. We already talked about that previously in that secondary blues. So that's a 3/7, and that's a very common kind of thing. You're going from C to so that could be like Dock of the Bay, sitting in the morning sun. What do you do in a case like that? I think the harmonic minor will work again on the 3/7 in this case. So you'll see those things on there. It'll tell you what to do. When you're on the A7, that's a 6/7 in the key of C. So some of those will use that snake charmer scale. I warned you about this in previous lessons, that the snake charmer scale, harmonic minor, aka, will serve you in many circumstances that have nothing to do with a minor key. So you're going to have a lot of fun with those scales if you don't have to think about them too much. You just got to practice them in your quieter hours. Just watch a baseball game or some other sporting event and just play, just keep going. Turn off the volume on your guitar or if you're playing this, and just play over and over and over again. But play a chord as a reference, see if you can hear it. Then when you're focused on it, get up, make a loop, and really hear it. Hear how those notes grind against certain melodies that you come up with. That's where the real magic is in music. Finding those little threads that connect chords. It's not just playing the proper scale, it's putting them together. So this will help you with that kind of thing. And down below I discuss some of the most common gravitational pulls in music. Well, we talked about the 1-4-5 being so strong, and that's why that blues, the standard blues, the 1-4-5, is so strong. When you go to a 5 chord in our G blues, the D7 really pulls hard to get back to that 1 chord. So you hear those things and you can work on them, and there are little ways that you can add texture to songs. That's discussed down there. So this will plant some seeds for future lessons. So that's another sheet that we'll have posted for you. And this last one is called Improvising Guidelines. So I want to just summarize verbally what would be some of the things that you should keep in mind. Some of this I've already covered here, but anyway, I'll just read them and I'll post this. And these are not just my thoughts, but things that I've learned, okay? And the most important thing before I read this is remember the 3 elements, and I quoted this before: imitate, assimilate, and then innovate. So remember that your whole life. I can't stress that enough. Imitate, most people imitate and they're off to their races. You know, you like Stevie Ray Vaughan, imitate him, steal all his licks you can get your hands on, and that's what you are, a Stevie Ray Vaughan clone. I don't think your job's done then. I think you have to take his licks, assimilate those into your playing, the way that your heart and soul hears it, and then innovate, which means bang that into some other things that you encounter through living and come up with something new that maybe some younger person coming up the line will say, gosh, that's my hero. And then they'll see you somewhere and say, what did you listen to? And then you can say, oh, I grew up on Stevie Ray Vaughan. And they'll say, well, I can hear that in your playing, but I also hear a whole lot of something else. And I think that's you. So remember, imitate, but don't stop there. Imitate, assimilate, and innovate. Okay? That's the big 3. Now, I'll read these fast. 1, consider your instrument as merely the means by which you express the ideas of your heart and mind. 2, strive, for the most part, to play musical phrases that have an easy, conversational flow. If you can hum your lines, I'd say you're well on your way. Pace out your ideas, number 3. Don't try to play every lick you know in every solo. This practice can be most annoying. Think of someone you've met who chattered non-stop in a conversation. No fun, right? Here I am chatting all the way here. Who can I talk? Number 4, music is all about communication, and jamming is a very special way to share information. Make an effort to have a true exchange of ideas by contributing things that complement and support what others are playing. Number 5, you shouldn't expect every solo to be a classic. That kind of pressure would be unproductive and unhealthy. But you should hold yourself accountable to at least say something. Number 6, I see the best solos as tonal short stories. Having a great kickoff to get the listener hooked, a theme that develops and comes to an exciting climax, etc. Consult my solo form and contour sheet, which you know very well is there, in this context. 7, the concept of tension and release is essential to great improvisation and yet is often overlooked. You want to know why so many solos sound the same? A closer examination will usually find them sorely lacking in this department. Tension elements include passing tones, we talked about those, wide interval double stops, we talked about those, repetition of phrases, sudden volume increases, dramatic sound effects, you could include tapping and stuff like that you guys know, pinch harmonics, ascending lines, all sorts of stuff. The release elements include smooth, legato phrases. I think Alan Holdsworth does that better than anybody, just legato, picking few notes. You just listen to him and you'll get that legato. Silence, leave some space. There we go. Nuno Betancourt. Hot space. Targeting, my favorite word. Stopping on chord tones, root, third, fifth, etc. Sustained notes with vibrato or whammy bar and descending lines. Number 8, strive to develop the ability to mentally hear each tone just before you play it. You'll find that this requires a heightened state of awareness and an inner sense of pitch. Listen to George Benson, for example, scat, singing during his solos, and you'll be witnessing a player who seems to hear everything before he plays it. It's amazing. And last but not least, remember, think of yourself as a musician first and foremost, then a guitarist. Master your chosen instrument so that you can instantly reproduce the sounds you hear in your mind. Near the end of his life, Joe Pass speculated that he could only effectively locate 70% of the ideas floating around in his head. This tells me that we need to persist. This worthy goal is no easy task. Okay, and one more quote for you. This is from the great Herb Ellis, worth checking out. Very strongly blues-based swing guy. I use all the theoretical information, all that knowledge, but it's never done consciously. It's all done intuitively. All I think about is trying to create a melody, and I don't try to go into business for myself until I know what the song's composer was trying to say. The great players are giving you a message, and the message is not how many notes they're playing. It's the feeling they create as they improvise. So anyway, I'm going to do my best to sign off here and put a little better spin on this because it's been so hot. Before I go, I want to thank you again for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you go to YouTube somehow, whatever means you can, to make commentary. I'm okay with criticism. Hopefully constructive. I would love to hear what you think, and I can add on this. I can go from 21 to whatever it is. If people like it and enjoy it, I'm willing to give you more. I think this is a time of sharing, and it's if we've come through the worst of it, I think we can say at least we did something productive during this time, and hopefully something compassionate too. It's brought out some of the best, I think, in what we can be to each other. So anyway, having said all that, I'm just going to, before I do the last solo, take it out, I'm going to call it my kitchen sink blues, because I want to hit you with everything that I've done. I'm going to try to remember everything we've covered, at least in the major blues arena, including major, minor crossover points, the modes, the tritones, no particular order here, some of the chordal comps for fills, double stops certainly, some string bending techniques, and one thing I didn't talk about, and since it's an ending, I'd like to do a couple of turnarounds that I think are kind of creative. It's always nice to have a nice, put a nice spin on your cycle. So if you've had a 12-bar blues cycle, I think it's nice to end with a nice turnaround. So most people have the most, and this is key of G again, most people have the standards. And then of course you can tag it with a 4, sharp 4, 5, 7. So in this case, you could make that a 9th if you want to. Okay, so you can do any of those kind of things if you want to. So taking this, now you can palm your pick and you can put a bass line on this. What would that sound like? And if I yodel it with my fingers, I can use fingers and my thumb for that. So that's kind of clever, I think you'd say. You also can do some that require some stretching with your hand. So you could come off that last chord. That's pretty clever, you'd say. That's a pretty big jump there. So if you're not familiar with this, that's the 3rd fret, and I'm over here doing this double stop out of form 2. So 7, 6, and I'm doing hybrid. You can do it with your pick, but and just going down chromatically. And you don't always have to go 4, sharp 4. You can go from one step above if you agree on it with the bass player and other players. So that would be a sharp 5, 7 going backwards. So you could go, so that's kind of nice, right? So you got that kind of thing. Down here you've got the Robert Johnson type of turnarounds. So I'm holding a G note static, and I'm going from the open G on the 3rd string, again hybrid picking if you please, then to the 3rd fret 4th string, going down 2nd, 1st fret, 0, and then finish it up. So now you can go with that, or you can make it yodel a little bit. That's kind of nice, okay? So I'll show you one more. There's so many that you can do. Well, okay, maybe 2 more. Time permitting here. So out of the G chord shape that everybody knows, you've got this 4th interval here, 4 letters apart, D to G. Okay, so if you keep the pinky static, you can do a yodeling sort of thing from the 5 on the 5th string to the 5 on the 4th string. Go back 1 fret chromatically. Back 1 more to C note. So you can even slide it in. That's kind of nice. Okay, and here's a granddaddy one. This is one of the granddaddy of the great turnarounds. You've got a bar chord G7. Maybe do a strum with that. Now with hybrid, this is wide. So many ways to do that. I'll just show you one that I like. So you strum the chord, or you can just pluck the outside. You could just do the outside just with this. And then slide into 7 on the 6th string. 6 on the 2nd, yodeling, so now I'm going 5th string, 5, sorry, 3 to 5 on the second string. Same 2 strings, 6, 6, 6. 3 sixes, oh, that's not a good omen. Not a very good interval either, but it's going somewhere. So then you end up with a D7 chord, your 5 chord, and then you can back up and so your bass is going, and then your lead is going. Now isn't that nice? So I've given you some of my favorites. So see what you can do with that, add that to it. I felt neglectful not giving you some of those things because this is the end for a while. And so I wanted you to have your solos end nicely. And so see if you can tack a few of those on. They also move. Most of them move. The one with the Johnson one. But just move it up 2 frets. Anything 0 will be 2nd fret. Listen to Robert Johnson, you're going to hear those all over the place. You guys should be doing your homework on that. Go back and listen to the greats. Listen to what they do. Listen to how they created such wonderful things. There's again the gift that came out of that hardship, the hardship of the suffering. And I don't think you have to look very far. Everybody finds suffering in their own time, but those were pretty extreme times. And so singing out their sorrow, I think, was therapeutic. And it's still therapeutic for us. So, and if you can share that with somebody, I think it's a great thing. So all this thing of the blues, it's not just dwelling on the bad. It's cathartic. It's singing it out. You feel better. You share it, and somebody else identifies. So hopefully we've covered enough stuff here that you can put together some good solos for yourself. So I'm going to end this series of 20, this being the 20th, with a solo in G. So I'm going to take it maybe 8 or 10 times. I'll see when I run out of gas or if I get heat stroke. One of the two. I had to close the windows. Too much traffic here. But again, you'll find that you can make your own style blend with all the things I've shown you. Try to put this in perspective. Don't dwell on any one aspect. Go for the stuff that you most enjoy first. Develop it, and when you get bored with that, then move to the next. And then when I see you guys again, I will read your comments. When you post them on YouTube, I will read them. I'll try to respond to some of them if I can. I'm not a most tech guy, but I'll see what I can do. And I certainly will be listening. And when I return, I will try to amend or add to the things that I've shown you and develop them maybe further if required. So here I go, key of G. I'm going to put it up a notch here. You can slow this down if you want to. I think you guys know how to do that on the internet. You go slide over. It'll be, when you're watching me, it'll be over here somewhere on that little strip there where it has the frames of how big you want to see my face, which don't go too big with that. Swelled head. There's a little gear. Punch the gear and it'll show you the speeds. I think the 7.75 is the best. I've used that. So 0.75. So if anything I'm doing, you want to slow it down. If you go to the 0.5, I think that one will be a little too slow. It tends to get a little bit wobbly. But 0.75, I think you'll enjoy it. I think you can get something out of that. And for certain passages, then I won't have to explain them. Even those double stops, the double stop turnarounds that I just showed you, might want to slow that down. Okay, so here I go. I'm going to rip, warts and all. Wish me luck. Here we go. Key of G. Speed is 120. Okay. Well, that's about it. I think I'm heat stroked. I hope you've enjoyed it. I could play forever, but I need a drink of water. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.